like to call this meeting to order of the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency, September 10, 2025. May we have roll call, please?
Jeff Stevens. Aye. Mike Ziegenmeyer.
Here.
Bruce Johnson.
Here.
Bill Conley.
Aye, here.
Todd Kimmelshoe.
Here.
Bo Shepard.
I am here.
Mark Boomgarden.
Here.
Charlie Hoppin.
Yeah.
Jeremy Chapdelaine.
Here.
Mike Morris.
Here.
Chris Schmidl.
No.
Director Morris, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
All stand. Salute. Pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Bear with my voice. I went to the Giants game last night and actually yelled.
They won.
They did too, yeah. Public comment. Members of the public will be allowed to address the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency's Board of Directors on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Any member of the audience who may wish to bring a matter before the board that has not been placed on the agenda may do so at this time. However, state law provides that no action may be taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Anybody from the public like to address this board? Seeing none, move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar groups together those items which are considered non-controversial or for which prior policy direction has been given to staff and that require only routine action by the board. The chair will advise the audience that the matters may be adopted in total by one motion. However, the board may, at its option or upon request of a member of the public, consider any matter separately. Any member of the public want anything removed from the consent calendar? Seeing none, any member of this board of directors want anything removed? Seeing none, I entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent.
Second. I have a motion to approve, a second. All those in favor of the consent calendar being approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent calendar is approved unanimously. Informational and possible approval items. It's an approval of an excess federal credits transfer agreement between the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency and the San Joaquin Area Flood Control Agency. Mr. Bissett.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So this item, it's taken quite a while to bring this back to the board. So next slide, please. So back in over a year ago now, in April of 24, the board approved a term sheet with SJAFCA, setting forth the principles of transferring our federal excess credits to SJAFCA. And in that term sheet, we codified sort of the terms of what the deal was at that time. So over the past year, a little over a year, it's taken the Army Corps to finally approve the Project Partnership Agreement Amendment, which both parties, SBUFCA, SJAFCA, and the Central Valley Board actually will participate in and sign. And that's the formal process of transferring our credits from the Sutter Basin project down to the SJAFCA project. So the state gets their share of credits transferred that they can use on the SJAFCA project, and we are selling our credits to SJAFCA. So over the past year, some things have changed, some terms have changed on behalf of the SJAFCA program. There's been delays in the Corps moving forward and getting that project into construction. They got zeroed out in the latest federal budget process, so there's going to be delays on the SJAFCA program. So they're not expecting to be able to utilize our credits until 2028 at the earliest. Next slide, please. So their executive director reached out to me. We've had a series of conversations. We worked with LWA to better understand the situation at hand and come up with a plan to move forward that both boards, SBUFCA board and the SJAFCA board, will need to approve. So we've proposed to modify several terms in the agreement and put those into the transfer agreement. So modify the terms and change those and codify those into the federal credit transfer agreement. At the end of the day, and on the second bullet there, SJAFCA will continue to make payments 60% of the face value of the credits that they're going to use at any given time. So that's the essence of the deal. That essence has not changed. What SJAFCA is asking for is some relief in the near term because of the delays on the part of the federal government and the federal budget issues that's impacting them advancing their program. They've asked for some delays in when they would make the minimum annual payments and or when they can utilize our credits. And they're asking for also when a minimum annual payment is made, that would be $450,000 as opposed to $900,000, just to assist in their cash flow situation and in the issues of advancing their program on behalf of the federal government. So that's a short way of saying, summarizing the situation at hand. I think I'll pause there, turn it back to the chair, and see if there's questions from the board.
Any questions for Mr. Bissett? Look like any.
I've got one
Here we go.
question. The 60% was the original negotiated amount when we did that a year or so ago.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So, and as Todd just mentioned, that is the essence. That is the main point of the credit transfer. The SBUFCA will realize 60% of its credit that it's selling to SJAFCA, and they benefit by getting about $10 million of, I guess, credit that they can utilize, and SBUFCA benefits by getting, at the end of the day, approximately $17 million when all is said and done. So both sides benefit. It's just going to take a little bit more time for their program to roll out because of the federal impacts. So with that said, staff recommends that the board approve the excess federal credit transfer agreement between SBUFCA and SJAFCA and delegate authority to the executive director to execute the agreement.
Any other questions? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, entertain a motion for item number 4.
I'll make the motion.
2.
Second. Bill Conley.
Are we okay with just a motion, or would you like the approval and giving Michael direction, et cetera, Mr. Counsel?
You want them to state what the recommendation is? Yes. Yeah.
I'll make the motion to have Mr. Bissett go ahead with the payment plan. I'll second what's on the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item number 4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item 4 passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bissett.
Thank you. Okay.
Item number 5, presentation, file monthly financial report.
Good afternoon. So this report, this monthly financial report covers through July financials, and what it does is it actually transcends 2 separate fiscal years, the closeout of 24-25 and the beginning of 25-26. Working capital through the end of July was about $23.4 million, estimated to date about $20.5 million. So that difference is mostly due to Tudor flood control, or excuse me, the Tudor Flood District, the construction of that, and then the Tudor project, and then also our bond service.
Hey, Sean, hold on. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Oh, gosh, thank you for that. So revenue for 24-25, operating revenue, $750,000 received through 6/30 for 24-25. We're still expecting, and it'll probably be reported for August, next month's report, but we should probably have some interest payment coming in as well. We typically receive that at the end of the year. We haven't received anything, an assessment revenue for the current fiscal year, obviously, just 1 month in. Capital revenues, though, about $8.9 million as of 6/30, zero for 25-26. But we have a pending of about $3.6 million difference there. And this kind of outlines that a little bit more. About $3.5 million of that $3.6 million is pending revenue for capital payments. And then we have assessment revenue that we just haven't posted yet, but we did receive about $66,000. For expenditures, for 24-25, paid expenditures about $7.8 million. Through July, though, about 71,000. But we do have a lot of pending expenditures for the 25-26 year, mostly due to the Tudor flood risk reduction project. We also had paid back in August, so it hasn't quite been posted yet in our reconciliation. But we made a debt service payment for the 2013-2015 bond series. Funding, just processing some closeout for RFMP4 and the CNRA grant that we also have as well. And we're just continuing to submit payment reimbursements to the state. 24-25 audit, we're just getting that underway next week. Assessment roll for Wildan was disseminated for 25-26 was disseminated in August. And Seth is going to discuss some bond refunding opportunities.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring kind of a heads up to the board, let the board know what we're working on. We have engaged our municipal advisor, K&N Public Finance, to evaluate some bond refunding opportunities. So we're sitting here in 2025. Our last bond issue was in 2015. The bonds we issued had a 10-year call provision. So once we get past that 10 years, we can call the bonds at any time. And given current interest rates, certain maturities that we're looking at would provide some cash flow savings to the agency. To the tune, given current market interest rates, if we were to do a refunding like today, we might see about $2.3 million of cash flow savings between 2026 and 2040. With a net present value savings of about $1.8 million. We evaluated that also with a 25 basis point interest rate increase, just to look at a sensitivity. Still provide about a net present value savings of about $1 million over the term of the bonds that we're looking at partially refunding. So I just wanted to give the board a heads up that we're evaluating that. There's some additional evaluation we're looking at, potentially issuing additional debt to generate some new proceeds to fund the Sutter Bypass Lease Levy project. The expectation is that we would complete that analysis and come back to the board with a recommendation or some options for a recommendation in the coming months. So wanted to bring that to the board. This is something that's happening kind of real time right now. And ultimately, I think no matter what we do, there'll be at least a minimum recommendation of just doing the refunding so that we can provide some cash flow savings. And then this would mean that our debt service payments between now and 2040 might go down by about $100,000 to $150,000 a year. And money saved is money earned, right? And more available for projects. So that's just a brief summary of what we're looking at. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We'd have to get another credit rating on the new debt. So there would be another credit rating process. Our bonds are insured. And so the underlying credit rating is, I believe it was AA insured. And so the bonds that we would refund, we didn't have a, we had a reserve insurance policy on the 2015 issue, and we have a cash funded reserve, but we do have bond insurance on both our series. So I'm just trying to remember. Oh, no. If anything, hopefully our rating would go up based upon our history of timely debt service payments and the higher coverage ratio. Asset values go up, and so when they look at the ratio of assessed value to the amount of outstanding debt, it would go up because some of our debt's matured, so that ratio would increase and the assessed values have increased. So no, there would be no negative. If anything, hopefully more positive, and that would give us a better interest rate.
Thank you. So what you're saying is the interest rate 10 years ago is higher than it is now?
The coupons that we would be looking at redeeming have a higher coupon rate, and so those are more attractive to investors today. And so I think that's the primary savings. We issued some premium bonds previously and with higher coupons, given the market conditions at the time. And so those coupons would be refunded with a lower coupon interest rate bond. So essentially, yes, there's a all-in true interest cost savings.
Okay. And I assume we don't do this without some kind of fees. There's going to be fees involved in order to do
So the savings is all in net is inclusive of fees. So that cash flow savings includes the transaction cost. So we've budgeted in the analysis. He budgeted $250,000 of cost of issuance and an underwriter's discount of 50 basis points of bond, which is I think the deal we had last time. So this would be inclusive of transaction costs. And when we look at this, what we want to make sure that we're doing is at least having a savings of a minimum of 3% of the refunded bonds. That's sort of an industry standard. Otherwise, it's really not that efficient. There's some fixed transaction costs, like the credit rating, for example. Before we go to market, we'll need to pay for a credit rating, and that's about a $15,000 cost. You're going to pay that whether you issue the bonds or not. And if the market, goes south from an issuer perspective, you're out that cost no matter what. So that's why you want to have that 3% so that you have some buffer on the day that you're selling the bonds.
And Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out one other additional item, and I don't know, Seth, if you covered this or if I missed it. The options we're looking at, neither one of them would extend the duration of the assessment district payoff. It's 30 years after the last bond issuance. So we're not looking at proposing extending that out. We're going to continue to keep that at 30 years past 2015.
Yeah, and like I said, the maturities that we're looking to redeem would only be those through 2040. So we'd see that cash flow savings between now and 2040, the last 5 years of when our term bonds are outstanding, the debt service would remain the same. So the cash flow savings is in those shorter maturities. We looked at it at a full refunding and basically redoing everything, and it didn't make sense. It was just those specific shorter term maturities with the higher coupons is where we'd see the savings.
Bill, you can still be on the board in 2040? Okay.
So everybody that owns bonds, you might get them called and you have to buy new ones. So sorry about that. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Any questions for either Sean or Seth? Any public comment? All right. Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing those options when they come back to us.
So yeah, we're looking at bringing that back to the board in October. So for an action.
Excellent. All right. Let's move on to item number 6, the presentation and file program project update.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So let's start with the Tudor Flood Risk Reduction Project. We're in active construction. The third and last cutoff wall heading is underway and will be completed a week from today, approximately, according to the schedule we just saw yesterday. So things are going really well there, and the contractor is, not only constructing that last cutoff wall heading, but they're also reconstructing or rebuilding the levee and bringing it back up, and it'll be fully completed by the end of October, ready for flood season come November 1st. Contractor's still working 10-hour days, 6 days a week. We do have, I briefed the board last month on the Odysseus Farms pressure pipe issue. The Central Valley Board is taking the lead on, working with the landowner and enforcing essentially their rules and their encroachment permit. And we have a meeting set up for September 17th. So I'll be attending that as well as Chris and the board and their attorneys and the landowner. And then, like I said, completing the work this year, getting ready for flood season, coming back next year to install pipes. Next slide, please. On our Sutter Bypass East levee repair, we have a meeting tomorrow with our independent panel of experts looking at addressing comments that they had. We're advancing our design process. We had a very positive meeting with, well, it was a very good meeting with DWR and Calpine late last month, discussing trying to get additional funding from the state to advance design and permitting of the remainder 12 miles of the Sutter Bypass East levee. So we'll continue to work with DWR on advancing those discussions. We're also in the process of putting together our FEMA HM Hazard Mitigation Grant Program application. So we're working with DWR on that process, and we'll be submitting later this month, actually, for our benefit cost ratio analysis. On our City of Orrville levee repair, we're still waiting on the Army Corps' levee safety inspection report. We thought we were going to have that last month, and we haven't received it yet, but it's due any day. We're looking forward to seeing the evaluation that they complete on that levee, the analysis that they have, and see where that takes us. We continue to work with Senator Daly and Assemblyman Gallagher on looking for opportunities from a state budgeting standpoint, and working closely with the City of Orrville and also the Orrville Citizens Advisory Commission. So this is always a topic that comes up at those meetings about what we call the orphan levy, and trying to get some traction with the state to make some investment in making improvements there. On our federal project, the Tudor to Cypress project, we, like I mentioned earlier, the previous item earlier today, the federal credit transfer agreement. So that is approved by this board. SJAFCA will hear it tomorrow, assuming they'll approve it. Both sides will sign that. The PPA amendment is going before the Central Valley Board later this month. The Army Corps will make that presentation, and that'll be an amendment that we sign, SBUFCA, and also SJAFCA, so it formalizes that credit transfer from the Sutter Basin project to the San Joaquin Basin project. So we're looking forward to getting all of that completed. Next slide, please. On Orrville, the OWA Robinson's Riffle project, we've had a lot of good meetings recently on advancing the design process there, working with CDFW and DWR on the designs that we're working on, and we're looking at identifying construction funding opportunities. We're having real meaningful dialogue with the state. They have funding available to advance these type of environmental restoration and uplift type projects. So we're in that process now of trying to secure some construction funding, and hopefully we'll have some news for the board in the next several months. We're also advancing our Thermalito Afterbay boat ramp and campground project. We're working on finalizing the design so that we can go out to bid next month. Working with DWR on the implementation agreement so that we can construct the project on their lands. Working out some details there so that it doesn't impact our schedule, and trying to secure all the necessary permits for that project so that ideally we can open bids in December and award contracts in February, March timeframe, and be in construction next spring/summer on that project. Also working on our FEMA remapping for Sutter County. So Chris and his team are addressing comments they've received from FEMA's consultants and moving that process forward. So making some good positive traction there. And then the last two bullets on this slide are the multiple Feather River side channel projects that are being advanced by, the first one is Sutter County Resource Conservation District. They have a consultant, Flow West, that's involved in that project. It's also the same consultant for the last bullet item, which is a side channel project further downstream that's funded through the Bureau of Reclamation, and River Partners is the lead on that project, but Flow West is the designer. So they're involved in both of those. So they're being able to kind of evaluate both and work on those, and we're part of that review process. So we're getting information as they advance their project alternatives and getting into the design process. Next slide, please.
Excuse me.
Yeah, you want a question?
Yes, going back to the remapping of Sutter County, can you give us a little bit more information on that? What kind of time frame? Just give me a little bit more information if you can.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you it, and then I may call a lifeline over here in the audience, but if he has better, more timely information. But typically, it takes about 3 to 5 years on this type of large remapping process. So when we did Butte County, it took about 3 years, but that was just the small portion of Butte County that was within our basin, the Sabufka Basin. This remapping effort by FEMA is for the entire county. So they're converting paper maps to digital maps. And then they're also incorporating our levee improvements into that process. So how we've changed the floodplain for the better. So we've taken areas out of the floodplain, achieved that 200-year flood protection. So they're taking all of that information in. They're also evaluating the opposite side of the river, making sure both sides of the river are evaluating the same design water surface elevation when they do the mappings for both sides of the river. So Chris is working closely with the engineering team on the east side of the river who helped for the Yuba County side. And I think that's been the biggest challenge, maybe not a challenge, but the coordination issue to ensure that the consultant who's working for FEMA understands how both engineering teams are evaluating the systems on opposite sides of the river so that it all speaks to the same language, essentially. Is that describing it right, Chris? And I don't know if your crystal ball is better than mine, but we're probably looking at another couple of years down the road before the process is completed.
Is there, once it's completed, then what becomes of it? Is like insurance rates can be adjusted or
Well,
what will that?
the floodplains will be better defined, especially in our basin. I don't think anything's going to change outside of the Sabufka Basin. Majority of the county is in the FEMA floodplain, but it's just better updated information.
Well, it would have changed like if a grower wanted to go out and build a house or something and the level's different than what we thought would.
Well, the county's using right now to administer the floodplain, they're using our best available information. So they're administering the floodplain on the basis of all of our levee improvements. So nothing's going to change when the FEMA maps become final, as far as I understand. But Chris, why don't you see if you can address that question better?
All right. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So the FEMA maps will change basically to become consistent with what the county is administering right now, if that makes sense. Because the FEMA maps that are currently effective are basically out of date. And if you look at those maps, there's an arbitrary line, just north of Stewart Road where the FEMA map cuts off its A zone. And so a lot of the work that FEMA is doing right now is more than just the Sutter Basin because, like Michael mentioned, they're bringing all of the county's maps up to their current standards. They're basically digitizing all of those maps.
Through the chair.
But it is a long effort. And, unfortunately, with a lot of the federal uncertainties right now with FEMA, it's very challenging even to get a hold of a FEMA representative. And it's almost impossible right now to get kind of like Michael said, a crystal ball as to how long it could continue to take them to process these changes.
Mic up.
Well, it's hard to say because we don't have the proposed, I'm not certain what FEMA is going to propose for the other areas of the county outside of the Yuba City basin, because we're working very closely with them on the mapping that this agency has produced for this particular basin, and we have provided them with best available information for the other areas of the county, which FEMA could use, but they could also decide to do analysis on their own for some of those other areas. I'm not sure where that is at, so I don't know if I could answer that specific question on if something will change, if that makes sense.
I think the answer is it depends how inaccurately it was mapped before, and you just don't know till they do it. We had very inaccurate spots in Butte County that are, luckily we had an older guy in our development services department meet with them and show that even in their new mapping, they were pretty inaccurate and corrected it.
So if I'm understanding this right, it's a giant question mark if we have a business coming up in Sutter County, either to build houses or to build a warehouse or anything. We don't know what mapping.
Well, the county is using all of the best available information they have to administer the flood zones now. And so the intent of this process is really to get FEMA updated to what the county is currently using.
Right.
However, with any federal process like that, there could potentially be some changes that FEMA would want to look at and do on their side. But I think the overall intent would be to get them and get their maps current.
Well, the 100-year and the 200-year certification is different than what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
FEMA only regulates the 100-year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And also, I'd like to point out that Sutter County Public Works and Neil Hay, the floodplain manager for Sutter County, he's involved in this FEMA remapping process. So, we're looking at making sure FEMA utilizes all of our data to map what we call the Yuba City Basin. I sometimes call it the Sabufka Basin because it's all the way up in Butte County also. But areas outside of that basin, our jurisdiction, Neil and his team need to be sure that FEMA is accurately mapping those areas. And we'll work with him on that.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I just got two more slides here real quick. Weather concerns. So I'm going to keep this going throughout the winter. I'll update it as information becomes, available. But we're going to continue to keep a real close eye on this winter based on, the strange summer we've had here locally, and then obviously nationally with all the flooding issues that have occurred. So we just want to be mindful of that. There is a flood season prep meeting with DWR. They do this every year on October 28th at the Veterans Hall right across the street here in Yuba City. That's where members from NOAA come in and give their weather updates for the season. as best they can. Typically, it's, whether it's El Nino or La Nina, and what does that mean? Oftentimes, it's a 50-50 shot of, because we're kind of always on that line of whether it's going to be wet or dry or normal. And based on going to these for the past 15 years, I mean, they've never really gotten it right, unfortunately. So it's a day by day, week by week, month by month, keeping a watchful eye on the weather. Next slide, please.
Can you let us know what when that comes closer, what time it is?
Yeah. I believe it's at 10 a.m., but I think they hold them throughout the Central Valley, so there may be one closer to home for you guys. I'll check on that and let you know. Later this year, in November, on the 3rd and 4th of November, the Army Corps is coming out and doing a levee safety inspection in our basin. And we're participating in that. DWR, the Sutter Yard, and Drew Stresser, Levee Districts 1 and 9. They're doing this portfolio risk assessment as part of a 10-year periodic inspection. So it'll be interesting to see this process, and we'll be part of it. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's going to be boots on the ground November 3rd and 4th. So it's going to be pretty long days of levee inspections. So that'll be interesting. I'll keep the board apprised. And then lastly is our next board meeting is in October. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it back to you to see if there's any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bissett. Any questions?
I think on the outlet campground, you might get the MMA to co-sponsor it.
That sounds good.
Any boat ramp, there's fights.
Any comments from directors? Okay, well, I'd like to take this opportunity to extend mine and this board's condolences to you, Director Connolly, on the passing of your mother, Joan Charlotte Townsend, and I'd like to close this meeting in her honor.